I 45F have owned a successful boutique for over a decade in Seattle and have been married to my husband Mike, 47M, for 3 years. He's an executive at a major tech company, and until recently, I thought I knew how to handle his mother Susan's, 68F, peculiarities. Today, I finally reached my breaking point. The scent of rosemary and garlic filled my kitchen, a perfect harmony that had taken 6 hours to achieve. I'd spent my entire Sunday preparing this braised beef, determined to make tonight's dinner special. Mike deserved a proper celebration for his promotion, even if his mother insisted on joining us. The sound of the front door opening made me tense. Susan's voice carried through the house before I could even see her. "Oh Mike, darling. I brought your favorite pot roast, the one you've loved since you were little." My fingers gripped the counter's edge. She wasn't supposed to arrive for another hour, and I definitely hadn't invited her to bring food. The click of her heels against the hardwood grew louder, each step a countdown to inevitable confrontation. "Something smells interesting in here," Susan announced, sweeping into my kitchen like she owned it. Her designer handbag swung from one arm while the other clutched a ceramic dish to her chest. "I made Mike's favorite," I said, forcing a smile. "Remember, we discussed this last week?" I wanted to surprise him. Susan's perfectly lined lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. "Did we?" Must have slipped my mind. She set her dish on the counter and lifted the lid off mine. Her nose wrinkled. "Oh dear, is this supposed to be pot roast?" "It's braised beef with rosemary and garlic," I explained, though I knew it wouldn't matter. "Mike mentioned loving it last time we had it at." "Sweetheart," Susan cut in, already pulling on disposable gloves she produced from her purse, "my Mike has very specific tastes. He's always been sensitive about his food. I don't think this will agree with him at all." Before I could stop her, she grabbed my roast, the one I'd spent hours preparing, and dropped it straight into the garbage. The thud of meat hitting the bottom of the bin echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. "There, now we can serve him something proper," she turned to her own dish, humming as if she hadn't just destroyed hours of my work. Mike chose that moment to walk in, loosening his tie. "Something smells amazing, Mom." He kissed her cheek, then glanced at me. "Where's that roast you mentioned this morning, Cam?" "Your mother threw it away," I said flatly. "Oh come on now," he laughed as if I just told a joke. "Mom wouldn't do that." Susan patted his cheek. "Camille's just upset because her experiment didn't turn out right. You know how sensitive she can be about these things. Luckily, I brought your favorite." I watched Mike's face, waiting for him to defend me, to question his mother's version of events. Instead, he grinned and reached for the serving spoon. "You're the best, Mom. Nobody makes pot roast like you do." Something snapped inside me then. Not loudly, not dramatically, but definitively, like a thread pulled too tight finally giving way. I'd spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife, trying to navigate Susan's constant undermining with grace, but standing there watching my husband eagerly dig into his mother's food while mine rotted in the garbage, I realized grace wasn't going to cut it anymore. "I'm going out," I announced, grabbing my keys. "But dinner's ready," Mike protested, his mouth already full. "Eat with your mother," I said, heading for the door. "You two deserve each other." As I walked out, I heard Susan's voice. "She's always been so dramatic, hasn't she? You really must learn to handle her better, darling." I got into my car and started driving, no destination in mind, but for the first time since I'd married Mike, I felt something other than hurt or resignation. I felt rage, pure, clarifying rage. And underneath that rage was something even more dangerous, a plan beginning to take shape. I spent 3 hours driving that night, finally ending up at Jenny's apartment. She of 46F, took one look at my face and pulled me inside, already reaching for the wine. "You look like you've either committed murder or you're planning to," she said, pouring generously. The night's still young, I accepted the glass, sinking into her couch. Susan threw my dinner in the garbage right in front of me, and Mike. My voice caught, he just laughed it off. Jenny's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then held it up. "Speaking of your husband, that's his 4th text asking where you are." "Let him worry," I took a long sip. For once, I didn't feel the usual guilt about making Mike uncomfortable. You need to start documenting this stuff, Jenny said, grabbing her laptop. Every incident, every text, every time she shows up unannounced. Trust me, you'll want a record. For what? The word hung in the air, heavier than I'd expected. Divorce? For whatever comes next. She opened a new document. Start talking. By midnight, we had 3 pages of incidents. Reading them laid out like that, clinical and chronological, made my stomach turn. It wasn't just tonight's dinner, it was 3 years of calculated humiliation. My phone lit up with another text, this time from Susan. Mike's very upset. A good wife wouldn't abandon her husband like this. Come home and we can discuss your behavior. She's unbelievable, Jenny muttered, reading over my shoulder. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Mike. Where are you? His voice was tight. Mom's worried sick. Mom's worried? I laughed. That's rich. Tell me, Mike, did you even look in the garbage? Did you check to see if I was lying about what she did? Come on, Cam, you know how Mom gets. She just wants what's best for me. And what about what's best for us? For our marriage? Silence stretched between us. Then, maybe if you tried harder to understand her. I'm coming home, I cut him off, but not tonight. I need space. Space? He sounded genuinely confused. From what? If you have to ask that, that's part of the problem. I hung up before he could respond. Jenny closed her laptop. Stay here tonight. We'll figure this out tomorrow. But the next morning brought fresh hell. Susan had let herself into our house again and was organizing my closet when I got home. Oh good, you're back, she said, not looking up from where she was sorting my clothes into piles. These really aren't suitable for Mike's new position. We should donate them. I stood in the doorway, watching her handle my carefully curated wardrobe like discount store rejects. Get out of my closet, Susan. Now dear, there's no need for hostility. I'm helping you understand the standards expected of an executive's wife. The standards? My voice was eerily calm. Like throwing away food I spent hours preparing? Like undermining every decision I make in my own home? She straightened, smoothing her expensive blouse. I've raised a successful son. I know what's best for him. You're still learning, and that's okay, but your resistance to guidance is concerning. Where's Mike? At work, of course. He was very hurt by your behavior last night. I suggested he give you time to collect yourself. Of course she did. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of the closet scene. What are you doing? Susan's voice sharpened. Documenting. Jenny suggested it might be helpful. Something flickered across Susan's face, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her, fear, maybe? But it vanished quickly behind her usual mask of concern. That Jenny, she said softly. She's not a very positive influence, is she? I was just telling Mike how worried I am about your friendship with her. The threat was clear, back off, or I'll poison Mike against your best friend too. I lowered my phone, meeting her gaze. You know what, Susan? Keep sorting. In fact, why don't you just move in? Take over completely. Because this right here, this is the moment you've finally gone too far. I walked out, leaving her standing among piles of my clothes, and pulled out my phone to text Jenny, you're right. I need to document everything. And then I need a lawyer. The family dinner was Susan's idea, of course. A chance to clear the air, she said. I knew better, but I went anyway, dressed in clothes she hadn't managed to donate during her closet raid. Mike's childhood home loomed before me, all perfect landscaping and pristine windows. Inside, voices drifted from the dining room. I caught fragments of conversation that stopped abruptly when I entered. Camille, Susan's smile didn't reach her eyes. We were just discussing you. Tom, 70M, my father-in-law, shot me an apologetic look. He was the only one who seemed genuinely happy to see me. Mike told us about your emotional outbursts lately, Susan continued, arranging silverware that was already perfectly aligned. We're concerned. Are we? I looked at Mike. Or is this another private discussion between you and your mother? Mike shifted uncomfortably. Cam, don't start. Actually, Susan interrupted, there's something we need to address. She pulled out an envelope from her purse. My stomach dropped as she removed several printed pages. I recognized them immediately, screenshots of text messages between Jenny and me discussing Susan's behavior and my plans to document everything. Going through my phone, Mike? My voice was barely above a whisper. When he couldn't meet my eyes, Mom needed to show me. Show you what? I snatched the papers from Susan's hands. That I'm tired of being undermined in my own marriage? That I'm documenting your mother's abuse? Abuse? Susan's voice cracked with practiced emotion. Is that what you're telling people about me? About our family? She turned to Mike. You see? This is exactly what I warned you about. The signs were there from the beginning. Signs of what? I demanded, but deep down, I already knew. Your instability, dear. Your paranoid tendencies. Just like your mother. The room went silent. Tom's fork clattered against his plate. What are you talking about? I asked, but I knew. Susan had been digging. It wasn't hard to find out about your mother's hospitalization, Susan said softly. The mental health issues that run in your family. Why didn't you tell us before the wedding, Camille? My mother's breakdown after my father's death had been private, a brief, dark period she'd recovered from completely. I'd never told Mike's family because it wasn't their business. You investigated my family? I turned to Mike. And you knew about this? Mom was worried, he mumbled. She thought I should know. No. What? That my mother needed help after watching my father die? That she got that help and recovered? Unlike some people who just manipulate and destroy everything they touch. Susan gasped. Mike, do you hear how she talks to me? Enough. Tom's voice cut through the tension. Susan, this is cruel, even for you. Stay out of this, Susan snapped at her husband. Our son needs to understand what kind of woman he married. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You want to know what kind of woman I am, Susan? I'm the kind who's done playing your games. I turned to Mike. And you went through my phone, shared private conversations with your mother, helped her dig up painful parts of my past to use against me? Camille, please, Mike reached for my hand. We can work this out. I pulled away. Can we? Because right now, I'm not sure what's worse, your mother's manipulation or the fact that you're too weak to stand up to it. Don't you dare call my son weak. Susan hissed. Why not? It's the truth. And here's another truth, I'm done with all of this. With you, with your games, and with my spineless husband who can't cut the umbilical cord. I walked out, ignoring Mike's calls behind me. In my car, my hands shook as I pulled out my phone and dialed Jenny. Remember when you said I should document everything? My voice was steady despite the tears streaming down my face. Well, now I need that lawyer. And I need you to help me plan something special for Susan, something she'll never see coming. The line was quiet for a moment, then Jenny said, come over. We've got work to do. Update 1, the text from Tom came 3 days after the disastrous dinner. Coffee? Just us. Need to talk. We met at a small cafe across town, far from Susan's usual haunts. Tom looked older than I remembered, his shoulders heavy with something more than years. I've been watching this happen before, he said, sliding into the booth. With Ryan's first serious girlfriend in college, Susan drove her away too. But this dash, he pulled out his phone, this is different. He showed me a video, Susan in their kitchen, speaking to someone off camera. Camille's becoming a problem, her voice crackled through the speaker. We need to handle this before she ruins everything. Mike's finally getting somewhere in his career, and I won't let her emotional instability destroy that. When was this? My coffee went cold, untouched. Last week. Before she dug up that information about your mother. Tom's expression hardened. She's been planning this for months, building a case against you. Why are you showing me this? Because I failed the last time. Stayed quiet, watched that poor girl crumble under Susan's schemes. He leaned forward. But you're different. You're fighting back. And I want to help. My phone buzzed, Mike calling again. I declined it, watching 3 text messages pop up immediately. He's worried, Tom said, but not about you. About losing control. Susan's taught him well. I can't keep living like this, I admitted. But leaving, everyone will blame me. They'll say I gave up, that I'm unstable, just like Susan wants them to think. Unless you change the narrative. Tom pulled out a manila envelope. I've been keeping records, dates, incidents, witnesses. Susan's pattern of behavior, not just with you, but with everyone she sees as a threat to her control over Mike. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Years of documented manipulation lay before me, notes, photos, emails, a systematic dismantling of anyone who got too close to Mike. Sarah Peterson, Mike's college girlfriend, driven to transfer schools after Susan convinced everyone she was unstable. Emily Chen, his first serious relationship after college, resigned and moved across the country after Susan spread rumors about her. Catherine Williams, his last girlfriend before you, disappeared after Susan orchestrated a character assassination. Why didn't you stop her? I tried once, early in our marriage. His smile was bitter. Nearly lost everything, including custody of Mike. Susan's very good at turning things around, making herself the victim. I learned to document instead of confront. He spread out financial statements and board meeting minutes. See these donations? They don't match the reported distributions. And these administrative expenses? They're suspiciously high. I think she's been using the foundation for personal gain. Are you saying she's embezzling? I'm saying there's enough irregularities here to warrant an investigation. But we need to be smart about this. Susan's powerful, well-connected. If we're going to expose her, we need solid evidence and the right timing. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Susan, Mike's heartbroken. If you come home now, we can work through your issues together, as a family. Tom read the message over my shoulder and snorted. Translation, come back so I can finish destroying you. I won't, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. But I need to be smart about this. Susan's already painting me as unstable. If I move too quickly, she'll use it against you, Tom finished. But what if you gave her exactly what she expects? Let her think she's winning, while you build your case. Susan's confident right now, sloppy. The more evidence you gather, the harder it'll be for her to spin this her way. My phone lit up with another message, this time from Jenny, meeting with the lawyer set for tomorrow. You ready? I looked at Tom's evidence, then at my father-in-law's weary, determined face. I need to copy all of this, I said. And then we need to talk strategy. Susan wants a war? Let's give her one she'll never forget. Be careful, Tom warned. Susan's dangerous when she's cornered. So am I gathered the documents, my mind already racing with possibilities. And unlike her previous victims, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. No more playing defense, it's time to show Susan what happens when she picks the wrong target. Update 2, Susan's annual charity gala was her crown jewel, the event where she paraded her perfect family in front of Seattle's elite. This year, she'd insisted I attend despite our growing tension. Now I knew why. The ballroom sparkled with crystal and old money, but Susan's smile gleamed sharper than both as she clinked her glass for attention. I'd like to thank everyone for supporting our cause, helping families affected by mental illness. My champagne glass nearly slipped from my fingers. Next to me, Jenny tensed. This cause is particularly close to our hearts, Susan continued, her eyes finding mine across the room. Sometimes these struggles touch our own families in ways we never expect. The room blurred. She wouldn't dare. My dear daughter-in-law's family has faced these challenges personally. Camille, darling, would you share your story? Your courage could inspire others. The silence felt like a noose. Dozens of faces turned toward me, expecting inspiration, expecting vulnerability, expecting me to play my assigned role in Susan's performance. I set my glass down with deliberate care. You're right, Susan. Family struggles with mental illness are important to discuss. I stepped forward, voice steady. Like the way some people use manipulation and gaslighting to control their loved ones. That's a form of emotional abuse, isn't it? Susan's smile flickered. Perhaps this isn't the appropriate venue. But you brought it up. I moved closer to the center of the room. Let's talk about it. About mothers who can't let go of their sons. About wives who document their mother-in-law's systematic emotional abuse. About husbands who check their wives' phones for their mothers. Camille Mike appeared at my elbow, voice low. You're making a scene. Am I? Or is your mother finally facing consequences? Susan recovered quickly, laughing lightly. You see what stress can do? Mike, perhaps you should take Camille home. She's clearly overwhelmed. I'm not going anywhere. I pulled out my phone, opened my gallery. Actually, I'd love to share some documentation with everyone. Texts, videos, evidence of years of calculated. Mike grabbed my wrist. Stop it. Now. The room went silent. Even Susan looked shocked at her son's grip on my arm. Choose carefully, Mike, I said quietly. Everyone's watching. He released me like I'd burned him, but the damage was done. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Tom stepped forward, but Susan intercepted him. I think, she announced, we should give Camille some space. Clearly, she's having one of her episodes. Episodes? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. Is that what we're calling resistance to abuse now? Tell me, Susan, did you call it an episode when you drove away Mike's college girlfriend too, or do you have different labels for different victims? That's enough. Mike's voice cracked like a whip. Mom's right. You need help. The room spun slightly. In that moment, seeing Mike stand beside his mother, watching their united front against me, something inside me finally, irrevocably broke. You're right, I said softly. I do need help. I need a divorce lawyer. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Susan's triumphant smile slipped. This wasn't part of her script. And one more thing, everyone here should know that Susan Thompson's charitable foundation has been misappropriating funds for years. Tom has the proof. I'm sure the IRS will be very interested. Susan went pale. You're lying. Am I? Check your files again, Susan. While you were busy digging up my family's history, you should have been watching your own back. I walked out of the ballroom, head high, Jenny right behind me. Behind us, chaos erupted, Susan's carefully orchestrated event dissolving into scandal and whispers. That wasn't part of the plan, Jenny muttered as we reached my car. Plans change, I slid behind the wheel, hands shaking but voice steady. Call the lawyer. Tell him it's time to file everything. All of it. What about? No more waiting. No more strategic patience. Susan wanted to expose my family's struggles with mental health? Fine. But now everyone knows about her family's struggles with fraud. Update 3, the divorce papers sat on our kitchen table like a loaded gun. Mike stared at them, his face a mask I no longer recognized. It had been 3 days since the gala, and Susan's empire was crumbling, the IRS investigation already underway, society whispers growing louder. You're really doing this? Mike's voice was hollow. Destroying my family? Your family destroyed ours first. I moved toward the window, needing distance. Sign them. Mom's reputation is ruined. The foundation was stealing from people who needed help. Your father proved it. The door burst open. Susan stormed in, mascara smeared, clutching her phone. You vindictive little dash, she thrust the screen at me. Look what you've done. Local news headlines screamed about the foundation's investigation, donor statements, financial discrepancies. Tom's carefully gathered evidence now public record. Truth hurts, doesn't it? I said quietly. She slapped me. The crack echoed through the kitchen. Mike didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. You think you've won? Susan's voice shook. You think exposing the foundation makes you powerful? I raised him. I shaped him. He'll always choose me. I know. I touched my stinging cheek. That's why I'm leaving. Not without consequences. She pulled another paper from her bag. Remember when you signed those loan documents for the boutique renovation? The ones Mike helped arrange? The signatures are problematic. Fraudulent, one might say. Mike noticed it months ago, didn't you, darling? Mike wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, we agreed. Agreed what? To hold it over my head? The pieces clicked together. How long had they been planning this? Since I started pulling away? Mom suggested we needed insurance, in case you ever lost control, Mike admitted. The room spun. They'd been setting me up for months, maybe longer. Every loan document, every signature, all potential weapons. So here's what happens, Susan smiled, composed again. You drop everything, the divorce, the allegations, all of it, or Mike reports the fraud. Your career, your reputation, everything you've built, gone. You'd let her do this? I asked Mike. Watch your mother destroy me? You destroyed yourself, he said quietly. The emotional instability, the paranoid accusations. Stop. My voice cracked. Just stop pretending this is about my mental health. This is about control. It's always been about control. My phone buzzed, a text from Tom, don't give in. Trust me. I picked up the divorce papers, hand steady despite everything. You know what the difference is between us, Susan? You destroy people because you're afraid of losing control. I'm destroying your control because I'm done being afraid. 1 month later. The boutique's grand reopening drew quite a crowd, though not for the reasons Susan would have expected. Society wives who once feared her influence now whispered behind their hands, watching me cut the ribbon with undisguised curiosity. Quite the turnout, Jenny said, adjusting a display. Though I notice certain people are missing. Tom called this morning, said Mike's finally moved out of their house, started therapy. I smoothed down my dress, one Susan had deemed unsuitable months ago. The bell above the door chimed. I turned, greeting frozen on my lips as Mike stepped inside. He looked different, thinner, older somehow. I won't stay, he said quickly. I found this while packing. He held out a small box. Inside was the necklace I'd worn on our first date. I'm leaving Seattle. Fresh start, away from Dash, he gestured vaguely, meaning clear. Away from Susan. Away from the wreckage. I told Mom I won't be calling for a while. That I need to figure out who I am without her voice in my head. He paused. Without her voice telling me who you were. And who am I, Mike? Someone stronger than I ever gave you credit for. He smiled sadly. What you did, exposing everything, it wasn't just revenge. It was revolution. All these women Mom heard over the years, they're finally speaking up. I stood up for myself, I corrected. There's a difference. Around us, the boutique hummed with new energy. Susan's former victims, now my clients, gathered to share their stories, to build something new from the ashes of her control. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I first started fighting back. It was better. Because revenge might have taken Susan down, but justice had lifted all of us up. I picked up Mike's box, the necklace inside catching the light, not a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found. My voice. My strength. My truth. Add it to the donation pile, I said to Jenny. Someone else might need it more. Someone just starting their own revolution.